If you want to reach a 2000 rating in chess, then you need to stop making the types of mistakes that 2000 rated chess players never make. In this video, I'll share 7 of them. And if you can iron these deficiencies out of your game, then your results are sure to improve. The first mistake is capturing in a way that introduces complexity into the position. I'm going to illustrate this with a game played recently by one of my students. Now it's black to move here, and there's a number of ways that black can capture the pawn on d4, with either of the knights or with the queen. Now I think a 2000 rated player would look at this position and would not hesitate. They'd take with the queen. Why? Because taking with the queen is very simple. After white probably takes back, there's nothing complicated about the position. You've simply won an extra pawn. And we're going to contrast with what happened in the game after my student decided to take with one of the knights. So by taking with one of the knights, black has just put themselves into a pin. See that? Now this knight can't move without the queen that's behind it falling. Now it might look as though that black's all right because black's able to take this bishop with check, and that's true for the time being, but still it's a step in the wrong direction. Let's see how the game continued, because white played the king to g2, meaning that now the knight can't capture with check, and my student played bishop to c5. Now this missed the move knight to a4, and now black is in trouble. That's a fork of the bishop and the queen, so the queen's got to move. And after the bishop's eliminated, all of a sudden, after bishop to e3, this pin is now actually impossible for black to escape if white has all the correct follow-ups. Now, black played knight to c6, trying to reinforce, and had the move rook to d1 been played, then black would have lost a piece there. Now, the engine won't show any difference between capturing with the queen or capturing with the knight. But the difference is that one variation is easy to play for a human, that's capturing with the queen, and the other can see things go wrong. So one step to become a higher rated player is to make things easy for yourself. Don't go for the complicated line if you don't need to. The second mistake is sacrificing without calculating properly. I'm going to use one of my other students' games to illustrate this. Now this occurred right when my student and I started working together. Let's see what happened, because in this position, my student with white decided that it was time to sacrifice on g5. Now, it's true that white gains 2 pawns for the sacrificed knight, but this is just not enough. This hasn't been calculated properly. It hasn't been calculated all the way to the end. A sacrifice like this, ideally, should be calculated all the way to either checkmate or regaining the material, or creating such king safety trouble that it's obvious that there's going to be a knockout blow very soon. Now, none of those things are true here. Black's got enough defenders. There's been some lines opened, but white's not in a position to exploit them. And in fact, with the move queen to h8, black is now creating a threat. If we just run through a few more moves, we can see that pretty soon the queens were traded, and actually black's won even more material, and black just went on to have an easy win. So don't make sacrifices like this unless you've calculated it as far as you can. Don't make speculative sacrifices based on hope. Hope that your opponent is going to somehow allow you to checkmate them. That's not going to happen, especially as you get into higher levels of play. If you're enjoying this video so far, do me a quick favour and click the subscribe button. I've got plenty more great chess content in the pipeline, so by subscribing you won't miss out on any of it. Now, on to the third mistake, which is failing to improve your worst piece. Our model game here is actually one of my own games. This is a game that I played right at the start of my chess improvement journey when I was rated around 1600 or so. Now, black's worst minor piece here is the light-squared bishop. It's pretty clear. Why? Because it's stuck behind this wall of pawns on light squares, hindering the bishop's movement. The best plan here would be to improve the bishop to a better location, starting with bishop to c8. Now that's a backwards move, and as a result can be a bit harder to see, but it's about where the bishop is going next. And the idea is to bring it to a6. And if it does get to a6, then it has a nice diagonal, influencing some important squares. But what I did instead was I just left this bishop here pretty much for the whole rest of the game, and it cost me big time. Let's see how. I played f6 instead, and I'll just run through some of these moves reasonably quickly, because it's not really about the moves that I did play, but it's about the move that I didn't play. The move not to improve this light squared bishop somehow, like maybe now you could consider bringing it around this way actually, but I never did this. For the whole rest of the game, this bishop stayed on d7, and eventually, at some point, a tactic appeared via knight to e5. Now you'll notice that the rook is attacked, so is the bishop. If you move the rook, then the bishop drops, and pretty soon, well, instead I gave up the rook, and now I'm down the exchange, and I'm losing this. And it's all because I left this bishop on such a passive square for such a long time. 2000 rated players don't do this. This is one of the reasons that makes them strong. They identify their worst piece and they prioritize getting it somewhere better. If you're enjoying these lessons and the way that I'm explaining things, then you can have me in your corner to improve your game through the Road to 2000 Chess Improvement Program. You can click the link in the description below to see all the details. Some of my students have had incredible results recently. In fact, one of my students has gone from 1100 to well over 1400 in the space of just 3 months. If you'd like results like that for yourself, then click the link in the description below and you can work with me to improve your chess. And with that, let's get back to the lessons. The fourth mistake is to trade down into a losing pawn endgame. This will be illustrated by another one of my students' games, but this time my student is actually on the right side of things. My student's playing white here, and white is a pawn up. Now in such a position, black has some chances to draw, but only if the rooks stay on the board. If we get down to a pure king and pawn endgame, then white is just going to be easily winning. But in this position, my student's opponent, with black, played rook to d5, not only allowing the rooks to be traded, but encouraging the rooks to be traded. Because after the rooks are traded, this pawn endgame is easily winning for white. I don't think I need to show exactly how, but this is quite straightforward, and you can play this not based even on calculation, but just on general principles. And the general principle is that an endgame where you're down a pawn, like in the original position, can be drawable if there are pieces remaining on the board, but is often completely winning for the side with the extra pawn if all pieces are traded from the board. It's knowing rules like this that 2000 rated players have taken the time to learn, and this is why they would never make such a mistake. Mistake number 5 is to be exclusively worried about material. Now, material is important, but the difference is that low-rated chess players only consider material, whereas stronger chess players are considering other things, like piece activity, king safety, and sometimes it can be worth giving up a pawn in order to gain those other positional advantages. Now to illustrate this, I've got another one of my games. This time it's an over-the-board game. I'm playing black, and my opponent in this game is FIDE master Nick Crode. Now, Nick Crode is one of the strongest chess players in my home country, New Zealand. He's represented New Zealand many times at chess Olympiads, and at the time this game was played, he outrated me by about 900 ELO points. So Nick is a big favourite in this game, but against all odds, I've actually got a much better position here with black. But it's the way that I played from here that saw a lot of my advantage disappear, because in this position I played the knight back to c6. Now this is not a move that I really wanted to make, but I felt as though I didn't have much choice. The knight is obviously very good on d4, aggressively placed, but if I left it there, I was worried that it would allow white to win a pawn, being too concerned about material. But let's just see what would happen if white followed through with the threat that I was worried about. Let's say that I play queen to c6 instead. Okay, let's say that white captures the knight and then captures the pawn. So indeed, white has won a pawn, but white has had to give up a lot in order to win that pawn. For a start, he had to give up his dark squared bishop. And now, with the f-pawn move forward, white's king is going to be a bit exposed on these weakened dark squares. For another thing, white's queen is on d4, and there's the possibility of a discovered attack with the bishop. So let's just show a few more possible moves. Let's say that I play knight to g4 here. No time to take the knight because of the threat on the queen. So let's say the queen goes back. Well, now I can give this check on the dark squares, probably provoking king to h1, and then the knight can come into e3. And we can see that even though I've given up a pawn, this knight is now on an amazing square. The dark squared bishop is wide open. The queen's also on the dark squared diagonal. So it's this kind of thing that you should be thinking about more when you're considering whether to move a piece backwards. You know, like this position here, actually, black is going to regain the pawn. The knight is attacking the rook, and once the rook moves, actually you reclaim the pawn anyway, so you're not even down material. Now, it's hard to see that entire line at the time you've got to decide whether to leave the knight on its square or move it back. But it's more the concept that I think it's possible for 2000 rated players to see that if this knight is taken and white has to give up the dark squared bishop, then there's going to be compensation here, right? There's going to be compensation in the form of some discovered attack, in the form of some dark squared weaknesses that white has to concede if they want to win the pawn. And that's the way that strong chess players really think. They're not just thinking about material, they're thinking about these other factors. Mistake number 6 is failing to consider every forcing move. Now this is a big one. It gets drilled into my students over and over again. A forcing move is a move which forces your opponent into responding. Now that's generally going to be a check, a capture, or a strong threat. 2000 rated chess players have trained themselves to look at every forcing move in the position, whereas beginner and intermediate level players just simply aren't considering every forcing move. And as a result, they're not seeing as much and they're missing opportunities. I'm going to illustrate this with a game played recently by one of my students. So my student's playing black here, and black's position is very bad. White has an extra pawn, white's also invaded with their queen, white's got extra space, so black is losing this. But in this position, white played bishop to e4, which is a blunder and allows my student the chance to get back into the game. Now maybe you can pause the video for yourself and see what the move is here. Well, it's a forcing move. It's bishop takes f5. The point is that if you capture this bishop, then of course you lose the queen. But if white were to take the queen first, then black can take the bishop on e4 with check as a key intermezzo, and then take the queen, winning a piece. The problem is that my student didn't consider this forcing move, and I told him afterwards, this is a forcing move, it's a capture, therefore it must be considered. Unfortunately, this move was missed, and white went on to win the game. So remember this, you need to consider every forcing move in the position. It really is one of the greatest keys to improving at chess. Mistake number 7 is releasing the tension too soon. I see this all the time among intermediate level chess players. Their first instinct is to capture or give a check, but often building the pressure is much stronger. I'm going to illustrate this with another one of my students' games. It's white to move here, and in this position my student played knight takes d6, which is a blunder because it misses a golden opportunity to win the game on the spot. After this, there were some trades, and we've got a difficult rook in game, and actually my student went on to lose this. Instead, in this position, white can build the tension. If you notice, there's a lot of pressure on d6 already. The knight's attacking it, one white rook is attacking it, so all we need to do is bring the other white rook in to attack as well, and now there's no defense for black. There's 3 white attackers on this d6 bishop, and only 2 black defenders. And of course, if the bishop moves out of the way, well then the rook drops, and again, white is totally winning. It's these moments that 2000 rated chess players don't miss. So if you want to reach that rating, you need to start finding these opportunities too. Aside from avoiding these mistakes, it also helps to understand how strong chess players see the board. I've developed a framework which I call the SOLAR method, SOLAR. It's a 5-step checklist which you can use in any position to see more and understand what the priorities should be. So check out the video. I really think it'll help improve your results.